Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the All We Do Is Talk podcast. We're here to talk linebackers today. I'm Eric. We're here with Isaiah and Moody. How we doing?
LBs.
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing today? We got some off-ball linebackers, so not the pass rushing linebackers, just guys who are stand up, give you some coverage, give you some run stuffing. Let's get it. Take it off right away. I'll start with. You want to start with some honorable?
Sure. I'll get into my honorable mentions. First guy out, I have Deion Jones, the linebacker from Atlanta. I think a running theme that you'll see on my list are I really value guys who are outstanding in coverage. And
Deion Jones is great in coverage.
That's why he made the honorable mentions, because he was pretty bad. He's been pretty bad over the last couple of years. He dealt with some injury problems, and then his play kind of tapered off. He seemed in the second half of last year to kind of start figuring it out again as far as his role goes. We'll see how he plays next year. He's still an outstanding pass defender, but he did give up 4 touchdowns last year, a career high. So with his play tapering off a little bit, I had to chop him off just a little bit. But I still think he has the potential to be a top 10 player on this list. Matt Milano from Buffalo, although they were really smart, they got him back on a nice team-friendly contract to continue to bolster that front seven. He's just been a really solid captain type of player on that defense. He's good in coverage. He's good against the run. He doesn't give you much as a pass rusher, I don't think, but he's just really solid. Jayon Brown, he massively outplayed the Tennessee first-round pick, Rashaan Evans, and he's been the guy who's been their best nickel linebacker. He's fantastic in coverage. Got him back for cheap.
Which question makes me wonder how good he is, but yeah.
Yeah, that's why he's somebody who performed like a top 10 linebacker last year, but you kind of have questions. He's not really fantastic against the run, but he's a quality pass defender, and that's really valuable in today's NFL. Along with this next guy, Zach Cunningham. Zach Cunningham somehow had the best run stop percentage in the league on a defense that was the worst run defense in the NFL. So it's just like he did his job.
I'm just clowning
everyone else was F- at theirs. That's what Zach Cunningham's basically been dealing with. But he was a guy I was really high on as a guy who could be a 3-level impact player in coverage and pass rush and run defense. He's proven that over his career. It's unfortunate that the defense around him the team around him is just so awfully talented. But he's one of the few bright spots on it. And last but not least, on my honorable mentions, Alexander Johnson from the Denver Broncos. He's a undrafted guy who just kind of came out the blue, had a breakout season a couple years ago, followed up with a good season, not as good as he was a couple years ago. So it makes you question, did he get figured out a little bit, that type of thing. But Denver's been really good at turning these kind of like unheralded talents at linebacker into some quality, especially in the pass coverage department. They've been really good at coaching those guys up. And so with a Denver defense that I expect to be really good next year, Alexander Johnson will be a part of that.
All right, so we got a few of the same guys actually. Mm-hmm. So I got Devin Bush as a honorable mention because he's coming off that ACL injury. I preferred Devin White to him in his draft class, but he was looking really good. Now, once again, you'll see the running theme. I don't know what Pittsburgh is so good at their scheme and developing players. I don't know who's really carrying the weight over there, but he was part of a good team. We'll see how he comes off that ACL.
Look at the interior defensive line video to find out who's responsible for Pittsburgh.
In my opinion, look at the pass rush video to figure it out. And then I have Matt Milano as well. He's a single-handedly just a coverage linebacker. Pretty terrible against the run because he's a coverage linebacker. So, I mean, but he's an elite coverage linebacker. Like, he's an elite coverage linebacker, but he gives you nothing against the run. So, not more to say about him. I also have Zach Cunningham, a guy who I thought was overrated to start the year last year, but he actually played, like Moody said, he actually played really good. And it's easier to see a good player on a bad defense because they're usually the only person making plays.
Yeah.
Which is also the question of, is he just a good player on a bad team? And then I also have Tremaine Edmonds, another guy on that Buffalo team. I think we said this about Ed Oliver, a guy that we've been waiting to like break out into that next tier of I'm elite. But right now,
he was the guy I was highest on in that 18 class with Rokon and Leighton and Trey and Edmonds and those guys. But he's
clearly stuck
good,
in three
just
right
not
now. Yeah, good player, but just hasn't burst onto the scene. Makes splash plays every now and then because elite size, elite athleticism.
He just be a tick late sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just his mental process is just didn't develop.
So maybe he just needs a few more years. I also have Dante Hightower and Blake Martinez. I'm going to lump them together because they're both the last of a dying breed of a thumping linebacker, and they both play in the same scheme, doing the same things at elite levels. They're more attack the run, blitz, stuff with the run type of linebackers. Blake Martinez has been underrated for a few years. I think he's the leading tackler of all players over the last 4 or 5 seasons. And what more to say about Dante Hightower except for watch Super Bowl 51? Yeah, 51.
Yeah.
51.
Yeah.
Where he made the splash play that opened the door for Tom Brady to take all the credit in the end.
I definitely agree with you about Blake Martinez. He's been very underrated. I think you underrate Dante Hightower. I think the opt-out's probably the reason why.
He was old. He wasn't flashing the last time we seen him, a year removed. He's still gonna be good in that scheme, but I'm gonna have to see it.
He barely made my top 10. I like Dante Hightower.
He was my 11B.
So
yeah.
So I think you're having about the same point. I think with a year off of him getting like his legs back, getting fresh, because when you're playing in New England, you're playing deep into January every single year and playing the most games than anybody else. He's got a year off to kind of refresh his body. Bill Belichick's going to be motivated.
Also, he's not really good in coverage, so I think
he's not really. But I think he's outstanding as a pass rush linebacker. I think he's outstanding against the run, and he's not great in coverage. But I don't think he's somebody who's
he's not
a liability. Like some other linebackers.
Sometimes he's slow to get the things, but I know you'll think about that play again in the playoffs when they got the interception of Patrick Mahomes and the epic in Arrowhead. Bill Belichick has probably schemed him into a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, you could argue that, definitely. You could argue that. But I guess we'll get into our 10 through 6. I'll go ahead and get started at number 10. Guy who's fallen off a little bit, but I still believe in the talent. Miles Jack from Jacksonville. His AFC title defense has left him behind. They're all gone. It's only him left now. He's the only guy who started on that defense who is still around.
Even worse is that they robbed him of the fumble that he clearly recovered against Tom Brady, so Tom Brady can take all the credit and continue to win more Super Bowls.
Miles Jack is a guy who
he's also my 10. So
he's a little bit inconsistent, but he's a terrific athlete. Really, really great in coverage. Solid run defender, got sideline to sideline speed. His mental processing hasn't developed as well as you would like, as far as his ability to see the play early and get there. His athleticism makes up for it. You always worry about his apparent degenerative knee condition causing him.
That's over now.
But I mean, like, this is a guy who was higher on this list a couple years ago. So that's also something you have to think about.
I think the guys ahead of him have stepped up. That's really good.
And I think the talent around him has diminished, which I think has hurt his ability to be as good as I think he is. But Miles Jack
also, he's a Will, not a Mike.
Yeah, he's a Will, not a Mike, definitely. He's somebody who needs to be running free. Number 9, I had Dante Hightower. I thought Bill Belichick is going to scheme him up into being right back into one of the premier 3-4 middle linebackers in the NFL. He makes impact plays for a defense. He's a guy who forces turnovers. He catches tip drills, interceptions, forces fumbles, gets to the quarterback, strip sacks, all that. He's the type of guy who can be. He's a perfect moving chess piece in that front seven for Bill Belichick. He gets a bump because Bill Belichick is doing the job so well for him, in my opinion. But I like Dante Hightower a lot. He was opt-out last year. But in 2019, when the Patriots had the best defense in the league, Dante Hightower was one of the best players on it. And number 8, a guy who I am shocked doesn't have a job yet, but should be getting signed very, very soon, is KJ Wright. KJ Wright.
He played Sam last year.
And had a career year.
Because he was playing Sam.
Because they drafted Jordan Brooks in the first round. It was like, no, that guy has to go play Will because we drafted him in the first round. And KJ Wright was in a contract year. So it was easier to be like, move to Sam, but they had to keep KJ Wright on the field because KJ Wright's just that good. KJ Wright, we always know he's been a solid run defender, but he's become outstanding in pass coverage. He was outstanding as a will linebacker. He played, even though he played Sam in their base in the nickel, he was the other linebacker on the field with Bobby Wagner. That's the best linebacker duo in the NFL because KJ Wright has been so solid. Now, for his age is the reason why I'm assuming he probably didn't want to participate in training camp. So that's the reason why I think he doesn't have a job yet. But somebody's going to have a massive addition to their team when they add KJ Wright because coming off a career season, the Seattle Seahawks are cap-strapped and they're jumping the gun to try to get the cheaper guy in there to make the plays. But KJ Wright is someone who is more than deserving to being on this list because that's how good he was this past season.
Played Sam. But okay.
But he on the nickel downs, which most teams play. Teams are playing nickels more than 60%.
But he was really good on first and
second.
second. He was really good, like doing the blitzing stuff this year. But yeah.
At number 7, I have Rokon Smith. Rokon Smith is one of the guys who had a good start, injured, but kind of picking it back up again. Ridiculous athlete, just sideline to sideline speed is outstanding. And when he hits you, the ball there's a 50-50 shot. The ball's coming out with his ability to just force you to go backwards. Guys don't get at yards at the contact with him, but he's also special in coverage with his speed. He can run with anybody. He runs with nickel slot receivers. He runs with tight ends. He runs with running backs out the backfield. He's a centerpiece in that defense. Rokon Smith is one of the most outstanding NFL football players, and I think he's a guy who's going to ascend into the top 5 after the season. And at number 6, I got an old school veteran, a guy who's been another dominant front 7 player for a loaded Saints roster, Demario Davis.
He's also my number 6.
Demario Davis is he had a late resurgence. He was really good on the Jets. He was a really, really solid player on the Jets, but then he came to New Orleans on a defense that was probably better suited for him in a 4-3 and with a better defensive front around him. He just became a stud. He didn't have to really worry about stuffing the run that much because the front four of the Saints was so good. So he got a chance to be really, really good at pass defense. He made a lot of plays in the middle of the field. He did a great job taking it away from the Saints defense. But he still is good against the run, not as good as he is against the pass, which is why but his pass defense was so good about him. He's a smart veteran player. I don't know how long it's about to last. You would think at some point his job also going to come because of his age, but he looks like a London Fletcher type who could just play forever and continue to be solid with his veteran instincts. So I'll go through my 10 through 6 again. Miles Jack, Dante Hightower, KJ Wright, Rokon Smith, Demario Davis.
I'm surprised you gave KJ Wright the credit to be on the top 10.
KJ Wright's a stud.
Ahead of a guy like Dante Hightower or Matt Milano. I thought he had a good year last year. Clearly,
he had a great year last year.
He's on the top 100 players list.
He had a great year last year. KJ Wright was absolutely outstanding.
His defense was terrible most of the year.
The Seahawks were actually a top 5 run defense last year. He was really, really good in that area, and we know the Seahawks' defensive issues were more in their secondary. They really, outside of Quandre Diggs, they really didn't have. And Jamal Adams missed a chunk of the season with a groin injury, and Jamal Adams can't cover, which is a big problem there. But so he got exposed in that area. But KJ Wright was really, really good, man. He had a career year last year, and that's saying a lot for a guy who's been a top player on a Super Bowl defense, an all-time great Super Bowl defense.
All right, so I'm going to start with my 10. It's Miles Jack. The only knock on him is when they tried him at Mike, he was less productive, had to go back out to Will. So he's not a dominant interior presence at linebacker that we believe that he was going to be. But, I mean, he's looking like –
he's better than Jalen Smith.
He's looking like he's on the coin on Jalen Smith, on who's one's projecting upwards, one looks like they're going back. Shame that they were both hurt because they both would have been –
We hate Taylor Decker. All of us hate Taylor Decker.
They both would have been top 10 players probably in their draft class if they didn't get hurt. At number 9, I had Deion Jones. What more to say about Deion Jones is he's one of the more better coverage linebackers, not very good against the run. As we see, a lot of these guys somehow were playing in that Seattle cover 3 scheme, and that scheme's good for coverage linebackers, but they usually are not good against the run unless you're the guy that's going to be later on the list who's been the best at it. And
I think the top 2 guys on my list play in that scheme.
Yeah, so what more can we say about Deion Jones other than he probably misses Jameis Winston being around to throw him some more gimme balls, but we'll see if Jameis Winston's back this year. At number 8, I've got Rokon Smith. I mean, ridiculous sideline to sideline range. I do believe he's a little overrated. I think he's not as good in coverage as people make him out to be, but a freaky athlete, some injury problems, but
he's small, but he's freakishly strong, freakishly fast.
At number 7, I have a guy that I'm in love with as a player. Moody is very low on him for some reason. I have Devin White. I mean,
you massively overrate
Devin White's probably the best athlete behind Fred Warner playing linebacker in the NFL. I don't think there's a more faster player going sideline to sideline other than Devin White. Just watch him and that Super Bowl. And Moody said there was a question. There is no question the best linebacker duo in the NFL plays in Tampa Bay, and they're helping Tom Brady get some more credit for more championships. But just watching him in the Super Bowl, he was doing just so much. His coverage was even more impressive in the Super Bowl on Kelsey, helping with Lavonte David, who we'll see later on.
Kelsey had 100 yards receiving, and the only guy who was slowing him down was Lavonte David. But yeah, let's give Devin White some credit for guarding Travis Kelsey.
That man is a sideline-to-sideline Tasmanian devil. Reminds me of Ray Lewis. We'll see where his career goes. And number 6, we have Demario Davis, a guy who came on late, but he's an elite, still really good in coverage, really good fit. Where did he play before the Jets is the real question. I can't remember if he was, but I don't know how the Jets let him out the door in the same year they let Robbie Anderson out the door or something like that.
When bad teams make bad decisions, you see what happens.
But a great player in that scheme fit. And, I mean, him and Quan Alexander is another duo. We didn't mention Quan Alexander.
Because he's falling off. I don't think he's in the same category as these other guys anymore.
But yeah, him and Demario Davis, they get the job done. Like Moody said with Demario Davis, how much longer he'll be getting the job done. Like I feel about Cajun Wright, both of those guys are probably not destined to be on this list for much longer.
I wouldn't be surprised if none of one of those guys are on the list next year. That's to be sure.
But I think we've got the same top 5. So Eric, how do you feel about the honorable mentions and the bottom 5?
Well, I feel like Rokon Smith. I feel like he is what Jalen Smith would have been if he didn't blow up his knee in the bowl game. That, like quick, like sideline to sideline, like watching Jalen Smith in college. He was explosive.
Can teleport to the ball. That's what Jalen Smith had a superpower.
Yeah, and he would have been a top 5 pick if he didn't.
Yeah, that's.
Was Isaiah Simmons on y'all's honorable mention?
No,
he is actually in him. Isaiah Simmons and Micah Parsons are my young guys to watch section.
Yeah, I'm a big Isaiah Simmons guy. I think he can do it all. His size and I think he's just a freak of nature.
I also believe
they drafted the guy in the first round to play his position.
I also believe he is a linebacker, if he was to reach his peak, he's a linebacker. Because making him Jamal Adams, an extreme Jamal Adams, is just a waste anyway.
He needs to be Derwin James. That's the thing. That's the problem is that's how they need to be using him.
I just don't know what I was high on Isaiah Simmons, but I've seen him in the NFL. I just don't know what you do with him other than put him in the hook zone and blitz quarterback. So I'm high on him. He's
outstanding in coverage too. They gotta learn how to use Isaiah Simmons. You took him in that high. You gotta have a plan for him, and I hope Arizona do.
Maybe I also like Tremaine Edmonds a lot too in Buffalo.
He like we said about Ed Oliver, we're waiting for them to pop. We've been hearing
he was gonna one of those guys like Rashawn Evans, like Leighton Vander Esch, was really good right away, but kind of like tapered off for the last couple of years. Some other guys have emerged.
And since you brought up him, we'll talk about the other 2 guys in this draft class: Devin White and Rokon Smith. Both went top 10.
Yeah, there's a lot of good linebackers.
Yeah, Rokon Smith is explosive, and who was the other one?
Devin White on Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm with you on Isaiah on Devin White. I mean, not to the point of where you're at, but I do think the guys surrounding him help him. I mean, just like
I think he's leading. I think he's one of the biggest factors in why those guys are so good.
Lavonte Davis is the pass coverage guy. Lavonte David calls the plays for that team. Lavonte David is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and Devin White is getting to run free in that tall bowl scheme and cause havoc. And that's what
he causes lots of it.
He does, and it's because, like you said, it's because the guy can sue and Vita Bay and Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett and Lavonte, he's a young guy who gets to play free on a super duper talented defense around him. But he reminds me the linebacker version of your boy Landon Collins. Is a guy who's falling into plays because everybody around him is so just like Jamal Adams. Everybody around him so good that he's the guy you're not accounting for. Like he does have special athleticism, explosiveness. So what does that mean?
You don't take linebackers in the top 10 of the draft unless you think unless they're Rokon Smith or Devin White. But yeah, that's it for that. But I don't know what Moody's got against him.
Focus had Rokon Smith at 25.
Yeah, he was not that good last year, but he was also not banged up.
The injuries were banging him up. I think he's a lot better than that.
But I think the way Moody talks about Devin White is how I feel about Rokon Smith.
He's the worst coverage linebacker in the NFL. He gave up the highest completion percentage. He gave up the most catches of any linebacker in the NFL. You cannot be a top 10 linebacker and be the worst coverage linebacker.
He's also lined up against slot receivers a lot. Like if Lavonte David is taking the tight ends, most of the time Devin White gets stuck on.
I don't know how often that's happening, but
he flashes on the film.
Like he flashes with his athleticism.
Where's Devin White on that PFF list, Eric? I think he's not that high either.
Devin White. I don't know how accurate this is because that's Jalen Smith at 7.
Well, how accurate?
What year is that?
Recent is this list, Eric?
Oh, this is for 2020.
Okay, yeah, okay. Let's just move on.
2021.
All right, but we'll move it to my top 5. Number 5, I have the playmaker of the linebacker position, Darius Leonard in Indianapolis. He's got a fresh new $100 million bag. Well,
That's
high, but well deserved for a guy who's the playmaker on that defense. He plays at all 3 levels. He gets interceptions. He gets sacks. He had 150 tackles on top of that. Fantastic tackle for loss production. Darius Leonard is a guy, second round pick in 2018, stepped right in, has looked like a superstar since day one. He has shown no signs of that slowing down. He plays on a really good defensive scheme, really good D coordinator, Matt Eberflus. He's getting to play his spot as that weak side, strong side, weak side nickel linebacker, strong side base. He makes tons of plays all over the field. I think he's a special player. At number 4, I got Eric Kendricks from Minnesota, another coverage demon. He's probably the 2nd or 3rd best coverage linebacker in the entire NFL. But he's also a sure tackler in the open field one-on-one.
Which is crazy because he's not a great athlete.
Not a great athlete, but he's a guy who intelligent, very, very intelligent, gets to the ball before the play even gets a chance to develop. And he's got good short explosive burst. He gets the guy on the ground every single time. Once again, really, 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 really good in coverage, and that's why I have him so high on my list. At number 3, I got the guy who could have been the MVP of the Super Bowl, the real MVP of the Tampa Bay defense, Lavonte David. Now, Lavonte David is another guy like Demario Davis, like Cajun Wright. 30-plus years old. He's been doing it for a long, long time in Tampa Bay. They finally put a defense around him for him to get to play on the stage, to showcase his skills, and he has shown them off in a big, big way. He's absolutely outstanding in pass coverage. His mental game is unbelievable. He gets Tampa Bay into the right play every single time. He's playing back and forth games with Patrick. He's spying Patrick Mahomes one play. He's man to man with Travis Kelce on the next, running down the line, running back sideline to sideline. He's the playmaker on that defense. He's the guy. Devin White gets some flash because he got some sacks this year. That's fine. People know Lavonte David is the guy with the production on that defense. 1, 2, kind of like the interior defensive line class. It's very chalk, very
You think it's chalk?
I think it's pretty simple. Number 2, Fred Warner. Fred Warner is the best coverage linebacker in the NFL. I think y'all seen his jiu-jitsu videos online. His athleticism, his balance is unreal. He's a guy who just moves fluidly. He moves like a safety, moves like a DB. When he comes to covering guys naturally, he makes lots of plays because people just don't expect him to be able to be in the position that he's in. But like he caught a pick off Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl from being in terrific coverage on Travis Kelce.
Patrick kind of did throw it to him.
Yeah, Patrick did throw it to him, but you got to be in the position that there's plenty of linebackers who will watch that ball sail over their heads when going against Patrick Mahomes. Fred Warner ain't a guy you can test like that. I don't think he's as good in the run, and he also hasn't been doing it as long as the guy who's number 1 on my list, which is why I have Bobby Wagner, who has been the consensus number 1 linebacker in the NFL, especially since Luke Kuechly retired. But even before then, he's easily 1B. As far as that position goes, he was the Mike linebacker on the LOB defense.
Luke Kuechly won a defensive player of the year, so I thought he was.
I mean, he did. People gave Luke Kuechly a lot of credit, but Bobby Wagner is just as productive. And now that Seattle's been so bad against the pass, in rushing the passer, they ask him to do more of that now. So he gets taken out of coverage where he's really, really good at to go get after the quarterback. And he's got top 10 pass rush blitz production as well. Bobby Wagner's the best sideline linebacker in the NFL. He's been that way. Even Luke Kuechly was around. He's been that for the past 8+ years. His speed is ridiculous. He gets off blocks. He's not tall, but he's stout. When he sticks you don't go. You don't get any yards after contact when it comes to contact with Bobby Wagner. He's just been the class of the NFL at the linebacker position.
All right, so we got the same consent. There's a consensus top 5 clearly. The only person I only have one person ranked the same place you have him, but clearly we all know there's tiers. There's 3 tiers if you divide these top 5. At 5, I've got Eric Kendricks. I think his athleticism is the only thing separating him from being better than my 4, which is Darius Leonard. And I think Darius Leonard makes more game-winning splash plays.
Yeah.
Whenever you turn the TV on, Darius Leonard is putting games away for the Indianapolis Colts, and he's been doing that since he stepped onto the field. Eric Kendricks, he does the same thing, but I just think Darius Leonard is a little bit better. I think they're about the same tier of player. Instead of 4 or 5, think about it as 3A, 3B.
I like Eric Kendricks a little bit more in coverage, which is why I gave him the edge, but I think they're really close.
Number 3, one of the most underrated players of the generation, probably, Lavonte David. He was doing this before Tom Brady showed up, before Jameis Winston showed up.
Josh Freeman was around. Lavonte David was out here making plays.
He's been a stalwart for the Tampa Bay Bucs defense for a long time, and he's still doing it to this day at a very high level. Luckily, now they've got elite talent around him and an offense to back him up to make the defense worthwhile. But even we saw in that Jameis Winston season, he was leading them to be in the top half of the league defense, and that's with a quarterback who threw 30 interceptions. Never forget. And number 2, I took the crown off him. I've got Bobby Wagner. I think he's taking a step back, athletically wise, but
I think the defensive talent around him took a step back,
which maybe I also ding him a little bit. But I think Bobby Wagner is still an elite player. Now he's doing the blitzing and run stuffing stuff a little bit better than the pass coverage. He used to be a monster in pass coverage. I just think I think teams attack him when he is in pass coverage a little bit more often than they ever thought about it back in the day. But I'm giving the crown, number 1, to Fred Warner. I mean, he's the best coverage linebacker we've seen since Luke Kuechly.
Yeah. Fred Warner is
his name.
He was just a couple years ago. He was a top 5 guy on this list. But Fred Warner is probably the best coverage linebacker we've seen since Luke Kuechly. Probably the best coverage linebacker. He started the generation of these former safety type players that are
like safeties. Who's the guy next to Urlacher in Chicago?
Oh, Briggs
was outstanding in coverage too. One of those type of guys.
I thought Urlacher was getting coverage.
Urlacher's all.
I mean, he got you out by Tom Brady. But yeah, I mean,
deservedly so. That'll be what we found out about Urlacher recently. But
not much more we could say. Run through it one more time, Eric. Let us know how you feel about these players. Eric Kendricks is my 5. He's Moody's 4. Darius Leonard is my 4. He's Moody's 5. We've both got Lavonte David, who I believe should have also been the Super Bowl MVP, but I digress. They just needed a reason to give Tom Brady more clout. And then we've got Bobby Wagner and Fred Warner as the top 2. He's got Bobby Wagner topping his list. I've got Fred Warner. Let me know how you feel about these guys. These are clearly the best 5 linebackers in the NFL.
I mean, I really like Darius Leonard. I think he's just an absolute gamer. When you turn on a Colts game and their defense is on the field, Darius Leonard's on the field. He ball hawks. He's always around the play. I'll never forgive. I'll never forgive Eric Kendricks for injuring Aaron Rodgers. I had Aaron Rodgers in fantasy that year. I'll never forgive him. I think Bobby Wagner is still the top. There's a reason why that man was a 99 in Madden for like 5 straight years. He in his prime, he was able to do it all. Like he could cover.
He still can, Eric. They're asking him to do other things because the defense talent around him has diminished so abysmally. But he does he's out still, there being elite, like I said, when they ask him.
I've seen him get in coverage a lot more than the supreme, like he can't cover slots or elite tight ends anymore.
I mean, he in year 9 now, so it's just like
hey, Lavonte David in year 11, and he's still. So I think Bobby Wagner. So,
I mean, but Bobby, it's not like he's not good at it. He's just not elite anymore. But he's still so elite. He's still best in the league in so many other things.
Yeah, and Fred Warner is just a freak athlete. He can do it all. He's insane to watch.
Yeah. All right, I mean, that rounds it up for this is it for
any young guys who you like.
I'll tell you already. Isaiah Simmons, if we ever find out what position he plays, and Michael Parsons, he was my number 1 defensive player in the draft. He's that pass rusher, stand-up coverage linebacker. I mean, he's gonna have to work on his coverage. Unfortunately for him, he's got a terrible defensive coach him up. So we'll see how that goes for him.
And you're gonna be Dan Quinn's is the person who's unlocking Michael Parsons for what he is. That's I think that's gonna be the biggest thing about Micah this year. Dan Quinn has altered his scheme to put Micah in position. Then 3-4 fronts. Micah's playing on the edge. Micah's mugging up at the line of scrimmage, playing your traditional linebacker
When
spot.
Mike McCarthy came back, he also said he was going to bring new things to the game, but yet he's not even running his offense. So I'll believe that when I see it. I think Dan Quinn is one of the worst coordinators in the league.
Tell him Mike McCarthy run the same offense, but we'll get to that during our interview.
Yeah, but I see. Hopefully, Michael Parsons' talent can single-handedly overcome the terrible coaching he's about to receive. But yeah, I'm really.
Man made Deion Jones to a top 10 linebacker, but I guess he just Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright.
Oh, I'm sorry. He turned Bobby Wagner into
that was second round
with
pick.
LOB.
With LOB.
That
guy was a second round pick. That guy was, we know Bobby Wagner.
Dan Quinn ain't been a good defensive coordinator since he coached LOB. So stop all the hype on Dan Quinn. But yeah, Michael Parsons, I still love him. Like I said, he was my number one graded defensive player in my board. Can pass rush, can cover, freak athlete. Isaiah Simmons, what position does he play? Who knows? Will he ever reach his potential? That's why you don't draft those guys in the top 10 because they don't have a premier position. And most of the time, these coaches in the NFL don't know what to do with them because in the NFL, you can't, like you saw, and we saw Isaiah Simmons is currently terrible against the run because it's not Clemson anymore where you can just dominate. The offensive linemen in the NFL are dominant. They're not college offensive linemen. So I don't know if Isaiah Simmons is a Nike, but he's probably going to be best at will or strong safety, but we'll see what they do with him. Anybody else for young guys, you guys?
No, I like your list. I think we can go ahead and wrap it up.
All right, that's it for Front 7. Eric, take us home.
Yes, sir. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. All right, boys. See y'all later.